Carrie Murphy was born in the mid-1990s in Humble, Texas, just northeast of Houston. Her father, Don, worked as a machinist, and her mother, Mary Ann, was employed by the Department of Public Safety. Carrie had one older brother, Scott. The family of four lived in a modest 1,400-square-foot home on Poplar Ridge Lane. Growing up, Carrie struggled with self-esteem and often felt like an outsider, never quite fitting in with her peers. High school proved equally challenging until in the fall of 2010, she met Rebecca Keller, a senior 4 years her senior in their school choir. Rebecca, known by the nickname Bonnie, had a reputation as a bit of a loner and wasn't exactly seen as a positive influence. Despite the age difference, Rebecca pursued a romantic relationship with Carrie. In Texas, Romeo and Juliet laws permit certain age difference relationships, but the gap between Carrie and Rebecca fell just outside the legal limit. Undeterred, Rebecca pushed forward with their relationship, which soon became an all-consuming obsession for Carrie. She kept it hidden from her parents, but when Mary Ann eventually found out, she was less concerned about the same-sex element than the age difference and Rebecca's negative impact on Carrie. Mary Ann's concerns only grew after discovering that Carrie and Rebecca had been exchanging intimate photos and later caught them together in the shower at the Murphy home. Despite Mary Ann's attempts to separate them, including calling the police on one occasion, the relationship continued in secret. On July 15, 2012, events took a tragic turn. Carrie and her mother, Mary Ann, were home alone while Don and Scott were working overnight shifts. At around 1:06 a.m., Carrie ran to a neighbor's house, asking to borrow a phone to call 911. She reported hearing her mother scream as someone broke into their home through the back door. Police arrived promptly, but the scene they found told a different story. Mary Ann had been brutally stabbed 73 times in the master bedroom, suggesting she'd been dead for hours, not moments. Under her pillow was a pistol, which remained unused, implying she was unable to defend herself. Further investigation revealed curious details. The back window had been broken, but with more glass on the outside than inside, raising suspicion that it may have been staged. Additionally, the hole was too small for an intruder to enter or reach the door handle. Nothing was missing from the house, hinting that murder was the only motive. Carrie presented an elaborate story to the police, claiming she'd tripped on a note left by the intruder with her mother's address and schedule. Another note, which she claimed to miss in the commotion, was on the dining room table, reading, "Good luck in court with your mom." Carrie suggested that a man she'd been in a minor car accident with might have been responsible. She claimed to have seen him nearby before the murder, as if he'd been stalking her. Yet, this theory did little to sway the police, who saw glaring inconsistencies in her story. As 48 Hours True Crime unravels the clues and explores additional suspects, the investigation raises questions about Carrie and Rebecca's relationship and the darker turns it may have taken. This gripping case study invites a closer look at how young obsessions and strained family dynamics intersected with a fatal event, transforming what might have been a typical investigation into a labyrinth of motives, lies, and betrayals. As the investigation continued, another layer of complexity emerged. Carrie's mother, Mary Ann, was reportedly having an affair. Her marriage to Don was strained, with Don sleeping on the couch at the time of the murder. Despite their troubles, both Mary Ann's lover and Don were cleared of suspicion due to solid alibis. When police approached Carrie with doubts about her story, pointing out inconsistencies that hinted at a staged crime scene, Carrie abruptly changed her account. This time, she claimed Zain Ahmed, a high school acquaintance, was responsible for the murder. According to Carrie, her mother once overheard her talking to someone outside and grew suspicious. Carrie lied, suggesting it was an attempted intruder, but her mother didn't believe her and grounded her. Frustrated, Carrie supposedly convinced Zain to come over and bang on the house's exterior to prove a would-be intruder. However, according to her version, Zain disregarded the plan, broke into the house, and inexplicably murdered Mary Ann. The police tracked down Zain, who denied involvement, but a polygraph test led to a startling confession. Zain admitted to entering the house, standing over Mary Ann with a knife, and killing her after she woke in terror. Yet the police were skeptical, His story was full of inaccuracies. Zane mistakenly described entering an upstairs room, though the Murphy house was one story. He claimed to have stabbed Marianne 4 times when, in reality, she was stabbed 73 times. His parents ultimately provided video evidence that Zane was playing Guitar Hero at home on the night of the murder, a rare instance where a video game saved someone's life. When asked why he confessed falsely, Zane claimed confusion, believing that admitting guilt would expedite his release. With Zane cleared, police turned their attention back to Carrie and Rebecca. They had already discovered a hidden bunny phone given by Rebecca to Carrie, which hinted that the girls' relationship was far from over, despite Rebecca's claim it ended. Call logs showed that Carrie and Rebecca were in frequent contact, even speaking at 1 a.m. the night of the murder, just minutes before Carrie's 911 call at 1:06 a.m. More disturbingly, Carrie had searched online for quickest way to kill someone around the same time she was speaking with Rebecca. When confronted, Rebecca initially claimed she was at work that night. But after the police exposed this lie, Rebecca changed her story entirely, asserting that Carrie had killed Marianne and then called her to help clean up the scene. She admitted to helping Carrie, but insisted she wasn't the killer herself. After passing a polygraph test, Rebecca was released, leaving the police to further untangle this chilling story of young love, deceit, and murder. With each revelation, the case grew murkier, exposing the dark dynamics between Carrie and Rebecca and casting their romance as a destructive force that pulled everyone around them into its path. When Marianne found the bunny phone and demanded Carrie's passcode, it triggered a series of fateful decisions. Faced with the very real threat that Marianne might use her connections at the Department of Public Safety to unlock the phone, Carrie and Rebecca were thrown into a spiral of desperation. Given that the phone likely contained compromising images and conversations, both girls knew discovery could lead to serious legal trouble for Rebecca, and in their minds, possibly even the end of their relationship. This sense of impending doom seemed to intensify their obsession with each other and drove them to plot drastic measures. Rather than accepting separation or potential consequences, they began to see Marianne as an obstacle that had to be removed. Her role as the authoritative barrier not only represented a legal risk, but also stood in the way of their all-consuming infatuation. Their conversations, recorded while Carrie was out on bail, highlighted just how deeply they were intertwined emotionally. Even under legal scrutiny, they communicated obsessively, reinforcing their toxic bond by exchanging sappy declarations of love with repeated pet names like "my penguin." Investigators listening to these recorded calls were struck by the juvenile, intense attachment Carrie and Rebecca shared, oblivious to the seriousness of their circumstances. But their conversation also revealed a crucial slip-up. When Rebecca referenced witnessing something unsettling in the Murphy home, Carrie responded with words that indicated she too had seen the aftermath. An inadvertent confession that sealed their fate. In the end, both Carrie and Rebecca entered guilty pleas, likely aware that their statements, online searches, and phone records left them little room for defense. The court sentenced Rebecca to 60 years, with a possibility of parole in 2042 when she would be 50, and Carrie to 30 years, eligible for parole by 2028 at age 32. This means they could still have years ahead, potentially rekindling a connection that had already proven destructive. In analyzing this case, their actions reveal complex psychological and social factors. Both Carrie and Rebecca exhibited traits that fueled their mutual obsession. They were insecure, socially isolated, and manipulative. Their relationship thrived under secrecy and the forbidden thrill, which seemed to feed their warped sense of devotion. As teenagers, their romantic options may have been limited, intensifying the allure of their illicit connection. The forbidden nature of their bond and the age gap laws in Texas only added to the excitement, driving them further into a relationship that became increasingly toxic and dangerous. In Rebecca's mind, the perceived threat of prosecution only strengthened her resolve to defy convention, pushing her further toward a violent resolution. What remains is a disturbing portrait of a love turned deadly. where two young people allowed their obsessive, defiant attachment to overshadow reason, morality, and any respect for life. They pursued this us-against-the-world mentality to a tragic end, leaving their lives forever altered. In this tragic tale, Marianne Murphy paid the ultimate price, caught in the crossfire of her daughter's forbidden romance and the deadly consequences of unchecked obsession. The threat of prosecution suddenly became all too real for Rebecca, and Keri shared her mounting anxiety. They knew the contents of the bunny phone, if exposed, could spell doom for their relationship and possibly Rebecca's freedom. Driven by desperation and fear, Keri searched online for the quickest way to kill someone, a chilling sign of their intent. Not only did they want Marianne out of the way, but they wanted it to happen fast, before she had the chance to investigate further. Keri and Rebecca conspired to remove the obstacles standing in their way. Keri bought the knife, and Rebecca carried out the brutal act, leaving a staged crime scene in a hasty attempt to divert suspicion. Their efforts to mislead the police worked momentarily, tangled in a web of clumsy lies, convoluted alibis, and polygraph confusion. For a time, the real killers managed to deflect suspicion onto an innocent third party, Zane, who fell into their trap and even gave a false confession under pressure. Ultimately, though, the police saw through the facade. Despite their misguided reliance on polygraphs, investigators pieced together a timeline of obsessive, possessive behavior between Keri and Rebecca, culminating in cold-blooded murder. This tragic case serves as a reminder of the intense recklessness that young lovers can bring when they believe that nothing, not even the lives of others, should interfere with their desires. From secret phones to murder, it was a sordid story of love twisted by obsession and fueled by a shared, dangerous fantasy. One striking aspect of this case is the apparent blind spot regarding age gap relationships between same-sex female partners. Despite the clear age difference, their relationship went largely unchecked, something less likely to happen if this had been a male-female pairing. Society tends to view such female-female relationships as less predatory or manipulative, often assuming an air of innocence that isn't warranted. The authorities may have looked at Keri and Rebecca, saw two people without prospects for other relationships, and simply let them be. But where there is an age gap that legally breaches consent, the law should be applied uniformly, without assumptions about intent or innocence. This failure to intervene reflects a societal bias that sometimes allows sympathy to overshadow the need for equal justice. Romeo and Juliet-type offenses have left countless people with lifelong convictions. Yet here, for a time, the law seemed to turn a blind eye, operating as though young love could somehow excuse unlawful behavior. In truth, this selective enforcement of the law left space for a tragedy to unfold, an oversight that society must be willing to recognize if it is to prevent future cases of similar blind spots. And so, the story of Keri Murphy and Rebecca Keller closes with this troubling double standard. A society willing to look the other way, pitying perpetrators rather than enforcing justice impartially. While Keri and Rebecca's story ended in conviction, it also left behind hard questions about the way we handle certain relationships and the quiet biases that continue to shape our reactions.